Alrighty, we're firing up the stream. I'm just double checking the settings and we're good. For anybody who's tuning in after the live stream, like usual, I humbly request considering liking and subscribing. Today, we're just gonna go and mess around with some hard drives. And to do that, well, I already rounded up a stack of drives and I have something blocking my screen. So what you got here is a plethora of drives. Mostly, well, it's a mix. We got, for example, this is my first laptop hard drive ever from a NEC Ultralight Versa, which was basically a early 90s to late 90s laptop. I mean, they still make them. Well, I don't know if they still make them, but they were making them for a long time. Different models, of course, using the name of the product line. And, oh, interesting. When Steam updates and you get those advertisements for games when it reopens, I actually look at those. Sometimes you see a game that looks cool, and I look for things involving spaceships. I'm simple like that. I like games with spaceships, energy weapons, pew pew, doesn't have to be like in a hardcore online game. I just want cool futuristic ships. But anyway, yeah, none of the games they were trying to sell me were that great today. So anyway, with this laptop, hey, what's up, Mr. Ferengi? Fantastic Fun Federation Ferengi Fantasy February. That was a cool comic book stream before. The pages, I felt like the pages were up a little bit long, but it was still cool because, I don't usually get to look at, I got some TNG comics that I should share at some point. But yeah, that was pretty cool. And I thought it was interesting how they depict the characters because, I usually don't think like, toned musculature when I look at a lot of Star Trek people, but like even Data had muscles, I thought that was kind of funny. And thanks for sharing. But yeah, I thought it's kind of funny how like Data had muscles. I mean, I know he's strong, and maybe that's a feature of Dr. Soong's androids, that add like this, excessively strong musculature. I wouldn't put it past Dr. Soong to do something like that. So anyway, old hard drive, right? This is a old laptop drive, and this is using the 40-pin IDE, which sometimes you might see labeled as parallel ATA, as opposed to serial ATA. And these usually have a missing pin on them, so you can line them up because not every drive is going to have that little notch on it. At least older drives don't always have this extra notch. And so you got to look for the missing pin or the red line where it says pin number 1. And in this case, however, we do have a missing pin, so we can just shove it in. Now, is this going to work? Yeah, I think it will. And, oh God, I should be careful with that. It doesn't look like it goes in all the way, but it's in. It's getting contact, so I don't really need to push it in any harder. I'll probably break it if I do. So now, before I spin it up, I think it's going to be really cool to disable my audio filters for this one because it does get very, very loud, this type of hard drive. This old style drive does make a fair amount of noise. And what I want to do is I want to put a dab of paint on the microphone just to label it. So that I know where to put the level again in the future. I need a pointier paintbrush. Well, I don't absolutely need a pointier paintbrush, but I would like one. Or I could use a Gundam marker, that would work. A Gundam paneling marker? I mean, that is the standard. Do I use orange? Well, let's see what orange looks like on black. It's not too loud. Oh, that's perfect. And hopefully it comes off with rubbing alcohol if I need to use that later. But I did that just so that I can manually adjust my microphone gain when everything is said and done. And so filters are off. Okay, good. You know what? Sound is still pretty loud, so I may not have to touch the volume. But I really want to give people the opportunity to hear this. Now, this is a 180 megabyte hard drive or something in that order. Maybe it's a little smaller. But back in the day when I was running Windows 3.1 on it, when the whole family was running Windows 3.1 on it, we had like something like 300 megs at our disposal, and that was because we were using compression. Back then, it wasn't just zip file. Oh, I don't like that. It doesn't look like there was enough power in that connection to supply electricity to the drive. But yeah, back in the day, these hard drives, you know, DOS had compression features. DOS 6.1, for example, DOS 6.11, they would have the feature called double space, and dblspace.com, which was like an executable file, would basically make it so that every file across the whole disk was compressed. And this was a cheap way to double or get additional capacity without buying a new hard drive. It did have an impact on performance, and I believe it also used up some RAM. I mean, it would have to. But, you know, it was a cool gimmick back then, and it certainly was helpful when you didn't have any other options as far as upgrading goes. So now, trying to remember here. What would I do? Oh, you know what? I remember. Before the stream, I went looking around. I didn't find what I was looking for exactly. I found other things. But what I really need to find is a different hard drive adapter for the Xbox. But for now, we're going to see here. Okay, so this one, we're probably not going to spin it up right now. This one here, I have other ways of getting this to power up. But I want to be super duper careful whatever I do. For instance, yeah, and I got a number of ways of doing this, but I believe it still works. I've ran it before. Just got to be super careful because this is a precious heirloom at this point in time. But yeah, I mean, you know, you're going to expect more power consumption. This is from an old laptop, so the power consumption of this is going to be much different. Back then, even, you know, some modern laptops, but back in the 90s, every laptop drive had like some kind of adapter like this, and sometimes they were custom. Some laptops had a generic adapter, which is good because you can use it between different brands. But for a long time, a lot of companies would have their own adapter connector, and so if you lost that, you were screwed if that thing was out of production. These days, you know, everything is serial ATA, and so the design really just lends itself really nicely to the laptop form factor. So anyway, same thing we did before. We want to power it up. So, oh god, okay, that drive sounded fucked. Oh wait, why is it making noise? Was there excess juice? Okay, that's interesting. This power supply has an on-off switch, but God, I don't know why. I don't know why it has an on-off switch. Doesn't seem to make a difference. Let's see here. We're going to try this drive. Maybe there was some issue with it. It made an ugly clicking sound. Okay. Drive is silent. Now we're going to add juice to the power adapter. It's still technically off. What in the hell? What is the point of an on-off switch? Well, anyway, I'm going to turn my audio filters back on because, you know, we're not really going to be hearing anything cool at the moment anyway. Just that laptop drive, that early one, when it turns on, it makes a cool sound. Okay, so I am a little concerned because it looks like this power supply is putting out electricity for all of these drives, like regardless of if they, the switch is on or off. So I don't know if this, I'm pretty sure yesterday I had to turn this switch on to get the drive to turn on. So we're going to rinse and repeat and see what happens with a full sized. Okay. No spin. Okay, so now it's spinning up. So my guess is when you plug this type of power supply into a laptop drive, for some oddball reason, it likes to supply some phantom power or some low power to it. But this is the first drive that we have working right now. At a later time, I'd really love to stream this drive. Hey, what's up, Matt Cave? Yeah, man, I was really hoping to get this one to spin up, but I'm going to have to, I want to be super gentle with it since it's my first laptop drive. I've backed it up before, but I don't remember exactly where all of the data is. I don't really want to pop in a zip disk. And so I'm going to do this a little more carefully, but this is my first laptop drive. It has been upgraded like from, to Windows 95, but it originally ran Windows 3.1 and it still has my first MS Paint illustrations on it. Although those have probably been backed up to a zip disk long ago. Once again, not trying to put a zip drive in or Jazz drive at this time. But yeah, some salvage drives I pulled from things. These actually have like this marker labeling here. These drives came from my server. So a while back, well, my old server, before I bought like an enterprise grade server, my last derelict PC server, because I would usually just take my old PC or some derelict tower or desktop and make it into a server. But my last one was like the beginning of me using ZFS like regularly, and ZFS is a cool file system. Like you could put like different combinations, like almost like software RAID. And the problem with ZFS was that well, not the problem, but so much problem with the machine I had was that I was plugging in drives that weren't compatible with the motherboard. So I had to get a different drive controller or storage controller. I had to get special SAS cables, which is like what you would use in an enterprise environment, although the cables I was using were not enterprise grade. And grounding was a little sketchy probably, so I was having this weird failure rate. I was putting like started with these multiple 1 terabyte drives, and I started swapping them out for 6 terabyte drives and mixing and matching and just adding as many drives as I could. And it was pretty sweet, but there was something sketchy about this setup. And so I ended up buying an HP, enterprise grade machine, which is fine. It was like an older but nice machine. Not super old, but it wasn't, it was obvious. Like I paid like what, 300 and something, and it has 12 hard drive bays, and it's kicking right now. In fact, I gotta add a 1 terabyte. I gotta add a 16 terabyte drive to it today. But anyway, we got this drive here, has a terabyte. It doesn't look like it has a file system on it. It was probably formatted for ZFS because that's what it says on the handwritten marker. We're gonna make this one Xbox ready. So to do that, we're gonna open up Fat Explorer, and we're just gonna quickly format it. It probably won't do what I need it to do, but this is one of the reasons why I'm going through these hard drives, is because I need to have a hard drive ready for an Xbox. A bigger hard drive ready for my Xbox. The 250 gig that came with the one I bought on eBay is maxed out, and I was having a hard time yesterday finding a compatible drive to replace and upgrade with. Now, these different settings basically will matter depending on my own Xbox's config, but this setting here will only let me have 128 gig. You have selected an advanced format disk. If you are planning on selecting an LBA increasing BIOS, no partition table, and wanted the format G drive, you shouldn't, because it would result in an unaligned G partition, which would degrade performance. Okay, let's just make sure I'm formatting the right drive. I don't want to take any chances. Okay, that is the correct drive. Well, basically, this probably won't work, but I want it to work. Because this option here would limit me to 128 gigabyte. Now, I could try it out anyway just to see if it does work, because that is the really important thing, if it works at all. So we're going to go ahead and do it. And this one's going to let me preload the E drive files, which we have over here. So that's good. And we'll let that run. In the meantime, let's do a little looking over here. So the next drive I have is this 160 gigabyte Seagate. This one has a better chance of working in the Xbox. And the key with an Xbox is the lock code, because the motherboard has the EEPROM chip with a code that is married to the hard drive, or the hard drive is married to that code. And you basically need that lock code to do anything with the drive, or to replace the drive, or anything of that sort. So then this one here is next. This one is, oh god, this is just an old one. We're just going to be plugging this in just for fun, because we don't know what's on it. And it's a Conner peripheral. It's Conner, like this weird old cheap hard drive company years ago in the 90s. And one of the interesting things they did was they had a drive called the Chinook. And the Chinook had the distinction of having two read-write heads as a effort to increase performance, but I think it was more of a novelty gimmick. And yeah, it literally had like two read-write heads, which I think they discovered very quickly doesn't actually translate to better performance, but it was a cool, idea. So now what I need is, I have like a couple of these adapters that let you plug these newer drives, serial ATA drives, into the old Xbox. It goes from serial ATA to IDE or parallel ATA. And the one I have right now, I suspect, is not going to work. And I have another one floating around somewhere that I really need to find, because that's the one that will probably work. But anyway, I'm going to go hunting real quick. Let's see, where do I begin? Where to begin? At this time, I'm not even trying to 4 or 6 terabyte drives. I don't have expectations of those. This is a 40 megabyte hard drive. This one I'm not going to plug in either, but not only because it's not useful for the Xbox, but because this one makes clicking sounds. I have two of these floating around. One of them might be, one of them is not the one that I used to use in the early 90s. The other one is. And I don't want to break the one I used in the early 90s, but I do want to back up the data from it. And so once I find a second counterpart to this drive, I'll have a better chance of, trying to distinguish them. And hopefully this one that is not the one, because this one makes clicking sounds. But if it does turn out that this is the one, if they both make clicking sounds, I would rather open the one that is not from my childhood. If one of them works, the other one doesn't. Hopefully it's the one that is from my childhood that works. But what's interesting is this one has a knob here. And when you turn this knob, it's actually moving the read-write head, which is really sketchy. I mean, that's super sketchy. I mean, like, when you run it and it makes the clicking sounds, when the read-write head is running, you actually feel this knob rotating. It's like locked in. So I can turn it by hand right now, but when it's running, there's a stepper motor that, like, engages it, so you can't turn it easily. And you really shouldn't be turning it while it's off. And it's kind of scary that there's this knob here at all. This should be covered up by a piece of plastic. I don't know why it's there. Maybe this was something they made available for data recovery especially, so that when you open up the lid, you can like manipulate it by hand or some exotic shit. I don't know. Very weird. I mean, you can see the motor right there. That part actually moves when it's running. Yeah, so there's that. But interesting trend I noticed. I had like a new 16 terabyte drive, and back in the day, the board on the back of a hard drive would take up the entire bottom of the drive, and even into the 2000s. And then as we got into more recent times, you start, having these smaller logic boards or smaller controller boards, which, even though you might refer to the thing on the motherboard as the hard drive controller, this is the true controller, in that this is what's controlling the actual read-write heads. It knows that it's spinning, it's controlling the motor. This is a direct control. And the earlier hard drives, the earliest PC hard drives, would actually have a separate board that you'd put in a slot in your motherboard. And it wouldn't just be the controller that lets you, send commands to the, port over here. It would be actually a board that contained all of the logic of this. as well. So it would be like an interface card, which is what we normally use, in addition to the actual controller board residing in a big fat expansion board that you put into your ISA slot. All right, so now formatting completed. What else do we need? Well, we need the C drive files. And so what's really cool about Fat Explorer is this new version actually lets you do that. This is a beta version that does it. And so, yeah, you know, if you ever need Fat Explorer for the original Xbox, at present, you need the beta version of like the new version of it. And it's a pretty sweet application. So right now we just mounted the drive. We just copied some data to it. We're not going to create an F drive partition at this time. We're going to unmount it, and then we're going to lock the drive because of the whole, hard drive security. And this is the part where it may not matter because I may not, have a drive adapter that is compatible. Although what I want to do now, actually, which reminds me, is while I'm plugging this drive into the Xbox and testing it, we're going to go ahead and prep a drive that is directly compatible. So remember, Serial ATA requires a special adapter, which I may not be using the right one. However, this here does not require an adapter. So this would actually allow me to verify that I can prep a fresh hard drive for the Xbox. So we're going to plug it in, and we're going to run this application while we're testing the last drive in the actual Xbox. So we just got to swap the power connector. Double-edged sword. It's got a wire harness, so if you lose this wire, you got to, make one up or you're screwed. But it is cool that this particular, one comes with the power supply. That the power supply has an on-off switch that works on everything but laptop drives, apparently. And of course, that lets you plug in both types of drives. And so now, let's spin her up. Yep, noisier, older drive. Not too noisy, though. We plugged in the USB, the USB. And we're going to go back to Xbox or Fat Explorer. And it sees the hard drive. I saw the hard drive. Okay, we'll give it a second. It may not see the drive because it needs to be formatted. I don't see it in disk management, and that's okay. So we're going to go to Windows Disk Management directly. We could do that by right-clicking on the Start menu. And, well, look at that. We do have a partition table. Why can't I mount it? Well, maybe it was formatted for a different operating system. Maybe it's FooBard. But if this was accessible, it would work. If I was running Linux right now on this machine, I might be a little bit more in a more exploratory mood. But we're going to just format it because this drive doesn't look familiar to me at all. Okay, there we go. 149 gig. That's basically the 160. We don't need to specify LBA increasing BIOS this time since, this drive here is definitely, below the capacity required. And then once this preload runs, we can then go and plug in the other drive. Hey, Google, switch input to HDMI 1. Okay, that's going to take a moment. We're going to go and... What the heck is that? Whoops, wrong one. Okay, we're going to go ahead and test this out. I'm going to plug this in and turn on the Xbox with that Serial ATA drive I mentioned. Booting up. Yeah, at this point, I'm starting to suspect the adapter. And I'll show you what I mean by adapter here. This is the, IDE to serial ATA adapter. And, they work generally when you need to, obviously plug a new modern drive into an old computer, So years ago, my mom's computer, didn't have enough expansion slots because I had to take out the serial ATA controller or something. Forgot, or was it because I bought a new DVD drive for it and it wasn't compatible? It might have been that. So I had a new DVD drive, it wasn't compatible or something with the motherboard's IDE ports or what have you. So whatever it was, I was able to just drop in a serial ATA adapter like this. And it worked. I think even on a modern CD drive, I was able to use it to connect to the older motherboard. And it's all great and dandy, but when you use it on an Xbox, compatibility is a little bit different. And then beyond that, even if I had the good adapter, I was worried that, well, what if this Xbox is not compatible with this drive? Is of the factors involved. And so I bought one mod chip recently, a modern mod chip or something like that, and I'm prepared to install it. Like my soldering skill is on the up and up now, but I'm a little, I gotta find it. I misplaced that mod chip, and it's like by the time I find it, it'll be I'll be on it. I'll have work. So, maybe I'll find it on my day off. Maybe next time I find it, I'll have the foresight to put it somewhere where I can easily find it. That would be my intent. Okay, so one more thing. We got to go back to the drive. We got to load the C drive again like we did before. And we're going to paste in the files for the C drive, which is basically like the menu, the operating system, what we call the Xbox dashboard, even though we're using a third-party dashboard. It's that menu, the MS dashboard that comes with every Xbox. Is that menu with the black background and the, all of that stuff, the black background and the green color scheme. Good. This time I think I actually dismounted it. It's a little sluggish. This drive is a little slow on the uptake, at least on that last command. It didn't yell at me. It didn't go, oh, you can't dismount the drive. It's in use. Usually that's what's happening with these drives. But yeah, I do have the other adapter. Just Lord help me if I can find it. And let's see here. So I'm going to go on Amazon. I'm going to look up my order history, which I'm so upset. I bought these two. This isn't coming till Tuesday, and I'm still watching the bootleg, but I want to watch it in, I want to rip the Blu-ray, put it in my library. Not going to necessarily share it with anybody. It's just that I don't really have a reason to not do that. I put the Blu-ray on my computer. I can watch it on any TV set, in any room. Heck, I can watch it anywhere. I can go on my phone and stream it myself, and I like having that option while ensuring I get the best quality. And I don't know why people hate Knights of Sidonia, but a lot of people don't like it. But I bought the movie because I was dying to see it when it came out, but I wasn't dying enough to see it to pay for Netflix. I think I even paid for frickin' Crunchyroll to see this shit, and they didn't have it. But they had other stuff, so I stuck with them until, I canceled them. Is this another Knights of Sidonia movie? Or is this a whole other anime? That's a whole other anime. Well, I'll look it up later. I'll just put it in my cart so I can read about it. Star Blazers. Don't they mean Space Battleship Yamato? Man, people always get that wrong. They're always calling Macross Robotech. I don't know why people keep calling Robotech Macross the wrong name when it's really, Macross or Macross, but it drives me nuts, man. People are really missing out watching Robotech. I mean, God. No, I'm kidding. I don't want to disrespect. So what was I going to do here? I was going to do SATA adapter. Yeah. So I got sidetracked ranting about Macross. Yeah, this thing. This is the one that supposedly had like better reviews. I need to find this one. It's laying around somewhere. I got a couple of hunches where I may have this laying around. And this would be the answer right here, I think. If it is just the adapter, the adapter is the reason I'm not able to do this, if this adapter is at fault, this should do the trick. So getting back to what we were just doing, I'm joking, I know what we're doing. Oh, wow, yeah, this application froze on me. How should I handle this? Can I close it? Spin down the hard drive, maybe? Disconnect the USB? open up the task manager. Just kill it. Yeah, let's just yeah, let's kill it. Alt E, which is the same thing as right clicking and hitting end task. And you know what? Get out of my way, Cortana. Can I end task on Cortana? Yeah, get the out of here. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's bad when an application, you know, crashes so bad that you can't kill it in the task manager. That's always a red flag. And I've had this happen before, like with OBS issues, for example. And it's like, usually if I just unplug the USB controller, USB adapter, I'm good to go. But now I have to go and look around for like, I gotta look for some related application. There's like a different method. I think I could use Process Explorer or some shit like that. And I have an application. It's like called, you know, it's called like Super Task Manager or some shit like that. I don't think it's this one, but I'm going to download this anyway because this is a good application when you need something better than Task Manager. And basically what it does is, you'll see what it does. But generally speaking, Task Manager has been such a good go-to that when it doesn't work, it's pretty easy to feel lost. Now, I'm assuming you got to run that as administrator. And I'm waiting for it to load. Okay, there it is. So yeah, it's just like Task Manager, basically, right? And we're looking for Fat Explorer, which we can, you know, tap the letter F. We can, you know, do different things. And what's cool is this might kill it properly. You know, it might have a more advanced way. Okay, access denied. See, that's always fun. So is this thing, you know, related to anything? Does it have a family? Why is it access denied anyway? And why isn't Windows Task Manager telling me that it's access denied? Why do I have to go there to this other application to find out? Can I give myself permission? Don't I already have permission? Am I not the administrator of my own computer? Am I not the captain of my destiny? Okay, I'm just pulling everyone's leg now. But seriously, like, what would it be about, huh? So maybe I can like try taking full ownership of it like this. I highly doubt that will work, but I'm willing to try it. I might have to reboot my computer. That is superbly annoying. Let's see if we can Google what, you know, happens when Process Explorer says access denied. You know, because I'm really not trying to reboot. Now, sometimes I've learned that when like I couldn't kill a process, oh yeah, I should do that. When I couldn't kill a process, I could like, you know, log out, log in, but it's like at that point I could just reboot anyway. It doesn't really help me. Like I still have to close all my apps and reopen them. Now, this is great and dandy what they're suggesting here, but this isn't going to get around to access denied. We could do it anyway. You know, I'm all for trying it because, you know, many times in tech support, people will ignore instructions because they think they know everything, right? So we're going to do CMD, Control Shift Enter. Then I get the yes, no prompt, which blanks out the screen. And once we go past it, now we can do paste the command. And basically what we need to do is give it the PID, process identifier, which is 26232. 26232. Sent termination signal to the process ID and did nothing. And sure enough, I bet you the dialogue will say as much here. Now this guy says, oh, try putting a /F. Sure, why not? I mean, like I said, I'll try anything. There we go. Now it's being honest. Could not be terminated. No running instance. What? Well, my eyes tell me otherwise. I see a running instance here. Now we can also go over to like, you know, the services, but no, it's not going to be here anyway. It's not a service. It's a process. And so we can also go to the columns and tell it, show me the PID. Let's make sure I'm getting the right identifier. 26232. 26232. 232, but it doesn't exist. And there's no running, see, no running instance of the task. Same issue I'm having. Excuse me. Rock Explorer. Is that what I'm using already? I don't even know what I'm using. Yeah, I'm using that already. See what the parent task is. That's ironic. That's actually what I was going to do in the first place. So let's take a look here. We could go. We got a lot of options here now. We can do what this guy says. Now he's saying go to the permissions button or tab. What is he actually saying here? Properties, security. Okay, that makes sense. Then permissions. Then we can see that, well, okay, I'm not here, but once again, I'm an administrator on my own computer. So I don't see why this would have been necessary, but I'll try it. I suspect there's a much more complex reason as to why this isn't working. There's usually some other reason, despite what Windows will tell you. Let's see, permission button grayed out. Well, not in my case. Okay, that's a cool idea, actually. Sure, I'll try that. I like that idea. I've done this one before, but I once again bet you there's another underlying reason why this isn't going to work. Nonetheless, we're going to try it just to be sure. I'll even type the name in the same case. See, access denied. It's like, F you, get lost. Reboot your computer, Ron, even though you're in the middle of a stream. Instance successful, and yet it remains. Yep. Yeah. But this guy is, going to TechNet community, the Microsoft community, what is that? Yeah. This is usually a great way to not get answers. Although, I gotta give it this. This has details at least. Oh, well, this is a forum. Oh, great. So there can be some back and forth. Once in a while, you get a guy, he's like, I'm a Microsoft MVP, and and it's like, it doesn't really tell you anything except the guy's credentials. 2005. This would be great if I was running Windows 2000. Yeah, no, it looks like a lot of back and forth here. All right. Process hacker. Okay, if I have to use that, probably the point where I should just reboot the machine. But what the hell? Let's try it out. You know what? Why am I installing it? Let's get the portable version. I don't intend on keeping this application installed for the long haul. Sys internal is PS kill. Yeah, I think I've used this one before. So I used to have this problem with OBS, and it was basically because of my USB microscope. And the solution was to log out or restart and to not use that microscope, or at least be aware of that. I'm gonna, the way I use that microscope dictated, basically I could avoid it, but I would have to be cognizant about how I used it. Now, this looks like a command line tool. So we can copy the entire path. We can go to CD. There we go. And then we can do PS kill. And I'm just going to guess that the syntax would be the name of the process. It probably isn't, though, because that would be too simple, right? But we'll try it out. We'll try it out before I, But we can do. No, wait. Can we do that? No, we can't even. The hard drive has not been. We're gonna try the hard drive out in Xbox anyway before I restart the machine. But before we do that, let's take a look here. Where did my mouse pointer go? Sometimes it gets a little dirty. A little dust gets in there. All right. So we're gonna try 26232. 26232. Access denied. Yes, I'm literally in an administrative command prompt. Not sure, using system, show detail, file menu solved, allow me to kill the thing. You know, let's go back to that because I still didn't figure out if this thing has a family. Sometimes you can force it to create a dump and that would do it, but suspect not. See, this is kind of giving us a clue of what's going on now. Log on session ID, NT authority. I think the operating system is just like fully owning that shit. And no, I don't think it's in a family. I don't think there's a tree or family associated with this item here. I think we're gonna just go and plug this drive. I'm trying to remember if no, I didn't even copy the C drive yet, so can't even test out the other drive until I do that. So yeah, bummer. You know, I think we're gonna shift gears because I don't want to reboot my computer yet, but I literally can't go ahead with this until I do reboot my machine. So we're gonna leave this bloody application running, and I'm gonna use this time to record another video. Now, can I still plug another drive in? I totally think I can, as long as it's not, you know, this type, right? Now, what other hard drives do I have? Well, we have that old Connor Peripherals hard drive from the 90s. So we're going to go ahead and plug that in. Now, 40-pin IDE parallel ATA. We're just going to find out. I have no idea what's on it. Can't imagine it being anything too egregious. Oh. That drive don't even spin up. That drive is probably dead. Okay, so we ruled that out. This drive is dead. And what other drives do we have here? I think that was basically it. So at this point, I'm going to go reboot my computer. No, not yet. We have actually something else to do. So last night, I did a stream, and I was talking about using the upscaler called Upscale. This is Upscale right here. And basically, I have these Japanese Hyperion Cantos book covers. Funny one. And yes, rest in peace, old Connor Peripherals hard drive indeed. And so the Hyperion Cantos is like basically my favorite all-time science fiction novel. I mean, this is a book that in 2017 kickstarted my, you know, my recreational reading efforts, basically. And on the subreddit, somebody put up a couple of book covers. They put this set of book covers up, and I gotta get these images out of this directory real quick. I have a lot of images that are not related. There we go. Just gonna get that out of the way real quick. So yeah, somebody put these images on Reddit, and these are the Japanese book covers for the Japanese editions of Hyperion, but the resolution is not that high. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not on my right screen. Let me start that over again. All right, so last night I did a live stream where I was using Upscale to upscale some images, the Japanese book covers for the Hyperion Cantos. And here are the images here. Now, these were the 3 images that were uploaded to Reddit a while ago. These are the Japanese editions of Hyperion. And this is the book that jump-started my recreational reading in 2017. Before 2017, I did not recreationally read any novels, really. It just didn't really see motivation. Problem with these book covers are, this is the best resolution. Like, when you double-click on it, 100% zoom, this is it. And the thing is, like, I really want, like, this book cover here. But this is, like, basically, like, less than, it's like 480p, basically. You know, it's like not even, it's like 3 something by 400 or whatever it is. It's some obscenely low resolution. And so there's not a lot of data. You enlarge it in Photoshop. Photoshop will try its best to interpolate it. But you're going to have a lot of blurriness and stuff like that. And then these other images, like, you know, we have basically extra book covers for the Endymion books. And if we go to them, these are actually in WebP format. Once again, this is 100% zoom, really low, basically 337 by 500. So, take that as you would. Very low res, and when you zoom in, you're getting this. So there's not a lot for Photoshop to interpret or interpolate. I mean, yeah, we know there's a crucifix on this man. We know there's some guitar strings, but how are different applications gonna treat this? Well, upscale is like the best of all. And I mainly used it on this book cover, which I'll go over examples in a moment, but you can see like the left side is blurring, the right side is clear. And so we're gonna start. We're gonna go and take one of these really pixelated book covers here, which are basically identical to the image in the big, one here. So for example, where's the boob lady? The one who's crawling on the ground. Yeah, it is. So these have like some stonework on the bottom. Whoops. And this one has just the printed name of the book as opposed to that fake, stonework. That is the main difference right there. So we're going to tell this program to open up one of those files. And we're going to pick the book cover to the left. Okay, we see it's pretty grainy. It's already been blown up, but not upscaled. And we have like all these different upscaling modes. And we can go from the top to bottom, This will give us a 4x, upscale. And we'll send it to the output folder. We'll call it, okay, Endymion 1. And when you do it, it uses up some CPU and GPU. We're going from 337 by 500 to 1348 by 2000. And so we're getting a significant increase. It takes way longer to do the 8x upscaling, but that, can be worth it at times. And you can already see like, left to right, a difference. But when we zoom in on it, you'll get a better, crisper idea of what just happened there. So we go back to our test directory. We'll go to the Endymion, and while we're doing the first book, we're going to tell it to do a second copy with a different setting. And we'll show details because there's no reason to show a thumbnail. So yeah, now this is 42% zoom, whereas the original was 100% zoom. And so if I shuffle this to the left a little bit, we're going to grab the original and get you a side-by-side comparison. Okay. So double click, zoom out, 100% zoom. That's the original size. Double click on this. This is 100% zoom on the upscaled image. Now, let's start with the lettering because this is where upscale really shines. See, 100% zoom on the right, 600% zoom on the left. And you can see it actually converted those pixels into these nice, clean, sharp lines. This is upscale with a Y. Upscale for you, Matt. So yeah, Matt, if you want to check it out, yeah, it is a GitHub repo. And you don't have to do anything crazy. When I first tried downloading it, I thought it was going to be like some crazy bullshit, but it wasn't. Because when you see a GitHub repo, usually you might roll your eyes and be like, ah, crap, some asshole wants me to compile the code. But now if you scroll down, you'll have a big fat download button here, and there's a Windows, Mac, and Linux version available. Obviously, the Windows version is like, a straight up easy to install, easy to run version. You can make a shortcut, etc. But yeah, it works. Yeah, no bullshit. Because a lot of times when you Google this, you'll see applications that you can only run in a web browser or something like that, or they'll try to sell you something. They'll try to make you, provide your email address so they can do data mining. All of that. Oh, it looks like my lighting conditions are changing because of sunset. So I really have to quickly adjust my camera because when the sunlight was blaring in like crazy, hey Google, light red. It was like, yeah, totally different. Hey Google, light 1%. Okay, so anyway, that was number 2. I'm gonna do number 3 here. And when you do the double upscale, it's going to do 8x upscaling, and that is going to take like super long to do. But yeah, so yeah, look up upscale with a Y on Google and yeah, give it a try. I think you'll like it. Only issue with upscale was this. When you try to do this really large image, the output resolution is so high, it'll work at 4x upscale, but the main proviso I have is that, whoops, I keep forgetting to switch. When doing a large image like this, even though this is not that large of an image to begin with, the output resolution is really high. So, you know, what I mean is like, if I supply this image, it has no problem doing 4x upscale with this entire image. But when I do the double upscale, this is 8x upscaling, it results in an obscenely high resolution. I mean, even with this image, it went from 1348 by 2000, and at 8x it's going to do 2696 by 4000. So, you know, like not too bad, but you know, you're going to get a really large file size. This was like 100 megabytes. Like when I upscaled this image here, it became like 100 megabyte output at, you know, something like that. I forgot the exact number, but bottom line is, yeah, what did I have to do in order to upscale this image with the double upscale? In order to get the 8x as opposed to 4x, since I couldn't simply use this image because it would work, it would act like it's working, it would take way longer to process it, but the resulting image when I did this image here would only be 4x bigger when it was supposed to be 8x bigger. And the solution I did to make that work was to split it up, and that's what you see here. You see all of the tiles from this image on the left broken up into these 12 separate images, because even though these middle book covers are like the front and back book covers respectively, I treated them as one cover since they are clearly one image. But yeah, like each one, there's one image, 2, 3, etc. So bottom line is, if you ever have a really big image, if you can break it up into smaller chunks before running it through upscale, that, you know, seems to be the solution. Obviously, there are photos you may not want to break up, but this being a series of tiled images, that was an easy choice to make. You know, I mean, it's a tiled image anyway, so you know, that's what, you know, you should be able to do. So now circling back, as our friend Ms. Jen Psaki might say to us, is let's double check how far did I get. I got 3 images. That would be 1, 2, 3. We're gonna go to number 4. We're only doing 4x upscale. And other areas where this excels is like in the compression artifacts. So usually when you know, like have this, you see these like off yellow pixels, you see these blurry areas here. For the most part, did pretty good. But like this circle here, there's no single solid color on that circle. And even though this is the 100%, you know, zoom here, even when we blow it up, we get a good idea what's going on here. Can we double it? Yeah, and I'm going to definitely double it to 8x in a moment. But I figure we start here just so we can see like some baseline, you know, qualities. And now I did it 4 different ways. So let's talk about that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in the program, you have this first one. They usually recommend using vMacRE. I don't know what that word means, but that's what's recommended. And by the way, did I leave a link? I'm going to leave a link to the program here so you can, you know, look it up. Remember, scroll down for big red download button. There you go, man. I always put a link in the chat just for convenience sake. But yeah, so, you know, people recommend this, but I would say try them all, explore them. And so one of them is called Real SGRAN, and that one seems to use like real data from the training models. And to really drive that point home, if we go to the Hyperion, Fall of Hyperion, this is the cover for Fall of Hyperion. Oh yeah, that could definitely help. You know, what you'll notice is this ship here. And do I have the original? Of course I have the original. So let's go and open up Fall of Hyperion to the left. This is the ultra itty bitty tiny little resolution image that we started off with, right? And whoops, the Windows photo viewer requires me to press control. So there's not a lot of data to work with here, but what the machine learning model was trained to do on this one was give the top of this ship a gritty look. And we can see that further evidenced because I did it in 8 times size. And so now we're going to really drive the point home on that. We're going to drag that over to the left. Okay, so for reference, this is the original size on the left. Windows won't even let me shrink it anymore. All right, so we'll put you over here. Okay, original size on the left, upscaled 100%. And then this is 8 times upscaling. So at 100% zoom. And it kind of has this weird photorealistic gritty look, almost like it was thinking like, oh, this is a piece of rusty metal from a war machine, or maybe like, charred firewood or something. And, that's what I get when I look at that. I get like this, sense I'm looking at like some real imagery from somewhere, photorealistic data. Now, on the other hand, where does the model struggle? Well, on the second one, the VMACRI, however you pronounce it, John Keats' face down here. Oh, this is actually not VMACRI. This is the anime cell shading one. We'll get back to this one in a minute because this particular one doesn't say anime in the application, but one of these options will give you this file name. So whenever you use a different setting, it'll generate a different file name. So it'll say 4x or 8x, and it'll tell you, something about the filter, the model it used. So for this one here, it's doing this cell shading thing, like some Japanese anime content. It's, it comes out interestingly because even though this woman doesn't have a face, it looks more right. It looks more proper, and it's still something you can't make a poster out of the original. You can make a poster out of that, But let's see if we can find the one I was really looking for. So I think this was yeah, here we are. This is the one I was my original go-to, VMACRI. And John Keats' face is just these lines here, right? But it's understandable that this would be the result because, I mean, what is there to really, what is there really available to process there? There's not a lot to go on. Like his eyes, his mouth, yeah, you would get that. Now, good news is, I mean, look, no matter what, I can find a good picture of John Keats. I could shrink it. I could, flip it, mirror image it, and put it in Photoshop and paste it on top. So I'm not super worried about this. I'm not really worried about, having to cover the man's face up. I think, I think that's trivial. There's other areas where it would be a little trickier, but, we might decide to leave it alone or find a generic picture of some woman dressed like this. What I would love to do is get the Japanese version of these books, period. And I don't think I've been able to find them. And I think what I'm going to have to do ultimately is, I'm going to have to just use Google Translate, take a picture, and get the translation for the kanji letters. And then maybe then I can go on Yahoo Japan or something like that, and then go to that other site, the proxy bidding site, if they have a means of letting me get this. Because these images are available in various places on the Wikia page, but none of them are particularly high resolution. It's like none of the Japanese covers are particularly high resolution. Like this one here was like that's what's currently available on. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, not much to work with there. Although actually, I don't know if I have this book cover yet. Do I? I may have to add that to my collection anyway. Okay, we got the strike on the left. We got Boob Lady out in the front. And I have this cover, yeah. Is my copy bigger? Looks like my cover is about the same size. Yeah, I think they're from the same source. So it's one thing to do touch-up work. It's the upscaling that's a pain in the butt. And yeah, when you run the 8 times upscale, it will take hella long. And if an image is too big, it'll still take hella long, and then it won't give you an output. Yeah, no, it really is a game changer, right? Screw all this, controversy about AI art. I mean, this is like where, it can be useful for all people, What what I would love to do is get the Japanese book cover, scan it myself at whatever the best resolution I can get, without, messing it up. Obviously, be scanning the pixels or Pantone pattern at that point, and then I would go and, you know, uh, upscale it further. So scan it at a really good quality and then upscale it. And I imagine that a lot of details would show up unless this was done like impressionist artwork, which is what happened. Like some of my early upscalings using the previous filter is just certain details. They take on an impressionist artwork quality to them. Whereas on the first pass, on the first particular one, and yeah, Mr. Matt Cave, you are most very welcome. I'm glad I was able to share this with you today. See, this one, I think like the gritty look works a little bit better. And one idea I had in mind was to like make a composite of different images. Like say, okay, I like this part of the image, but I like this part of the other image, and combine different elements, which would be a little bit of a pain in the ass and time consuming, but it's an option. But yeah, let's see. Let's go on to number 3, get some comparisons here. Then we're going to go to number 4. This one is balanced, ultra mix balance. So it's balancing different methods between each other. I think they all make it appropriate for a poster print, but even as a poster print, and this one's the worst. The last option was ultra sharp, like at the bottom of the menu here. This one seems to be the worst. There may be a time where it's appropriate, but sharpening the image, or this particular mode of sharpening, it seems to sharpen all of the bad parts. It looks at the compression artifacts because, even the solid color areas that the other modes seem to do better, this one doesn't. Because if we circle back, you can see like there we go. Like we got the yellow is all yellow. So yeah, that's the only thing. The ultra sharp one is the worst, when it comes to handling the solid colors and whatnot. Now, if we look at other images we've already processed, I would want to show some of the other outputs, because I have this whole folder here, and in here, like one thing I noticed was when I did different passes, like this guy's face looks really weird here, but in another version of the process, I got an image that I really liked, if I could find it. That's Simon Augustino Lourdesami. He is the Pope's assistant in the Pax fleet, or the Pax. And so the Pax is like this organization. It's basically the Vatican in space, and they have a monopoly on a technology that can resurrect people from the dead. And that's what this book is about, or at least what the last couple of books in the series are about. And so their answer to inertial dampers to get faster than light travel is to have a ship that kills the passengers, kills the occupants, and then they could resurrect you afterwards. They could bring you back. They got like this magical parasite that'll bring you back from the dead. So this one here, you can see like the face came out better. Another interesting thing I started noticing was like these patterns here. These noise patterns seem to be a result of the Pantone pattern that you get when you look at a printed magazine or something like that. You can see like where this one on the left, it's not horrible, but this one on the right works way better. This is a woman, a robot woman. This is like the Terminator, basically. She's a robot, an evil robot. She's getting, cooked by a microwave beam from orbit, nuked from orbit. She's being microwaved from orbit. And she's like, ah! She's melting into the rock, molten rock. This bitch gets trapped in molten rock for like 3 or 5 years, like, and then like her people just come to pick her up, and they're like, yeah, we knew you were here. We just need you now. Like, this is your punishment, bitch. So yeah, but you can see like each one has different advantages, and I'm giving it a really bad image to work on. Here's another element that I thought was interesting, was on the left over here. This red logo here. And if I saw the original book, I might realize that I can, you know, that it should be a sharper triangle. And if that's the case, I can vector art, I can use shapes in Photoshop, I can add a layer to it. I could fix that up if I really, so I can make that part look better, if it needed to be made better. But let's look at one area where the models really seem to struggle, because I do have some examples of like kanji characters where like it just kind of got really sketchy. Where was it? There's some small print on one of these covers here. It might have been on this one here, perhaps. We're going to find it. We are going to find it. It had to be on one of these. So we're going to cycle through all of these and see what we can find. But yeah, we got Endymion. You got a magic carpet. It's actually electromagnetic carpet. It's not a magic carpet. Yeah, man, I'm curious to see how that works out for you, Matt. I'm sure either way you'll find use for it one way or another. I mean, this is pretty invaluable. Years ago, I would use Photoshop's free transform or transform tool, and it did pretty good up to a point. It did. But it had its, limitations. And this is cool because this is like a way to expand upon that capability now. It can use a fair amount of processing power, especially if you're jumping between different images, especially since you're well aware that I still got to reboot my computer. So there may be some stuff lingering in the background that is affecting proper performance, And so just switching between these images seems to be like, there we go. That wasn't too bad. Platform 326 mid-literal. Yeah, I remember good old platform 326 mid-literal. I'm not even kidding. That's the name of that platform there. This is the planet Mare Infinitus. It is a ocean world. They're on a little raft, and this is a Farcaster portal, a portal that will instantaneously bring you to a different planet. But as far as everyone's concerned, this hasn't worked in 200, 300 years. And this planet has like multiple moons and stuff. In fact, I think the planet is a moon in orbit of a large gas giant. Let's see. I'm looking, but let me see. I came here to look for some tiny kanji letters, kanji characters, Japanese lettering here. And we will find it. We might find it. We might not find it. But take my word for it. There was a book cover where the letters in the corner were really, really super blurry. Was it one of these covers? Oh yeah, it was one of these covers. So I can always reprocess one of these blue covers. That's what we'll do. We'll go to my test directory. Yeah, it's going to be one of these right here. And we're going to open up the Remacre, however you pronounce that shit. So the way you save the upscale image, Matt, when you run one, initially you're going to browse for it, which I know you've already done, but I'm just going to run you through the gauntlet real quick. So for example, let's take my source imagery. I'm going to start with Hyperion 2. I'm going to tell it I want to do the first one. The third here, where it says output folder. This is where you specify. So you click set output folder, and all you got to do is browse for a folder. So I'm just going to browse. And then once you open or select, you highlight the folder, you click select folder, and that's it. Now when you click upscale, it will send it to that folder. That's all you got to do. And so, in my case, I had the folder open already, but if I had doubt, what I like to do in Windows is just copy the entire path from the top. Then I could do run. I could go Windows key R, Windows key R opens up the run box. I could paste in that entire path. Or you can pick a folder where you know where it is already, And bottom line is when I save this, I click upscale, it'll do it. Now, if you keep advanced options closed, it'll use whatever format. WebP seems to be the current one to use today. It's, better than JPEG in many ways, but you may choose PNG if you have a lot of solid colors. So for a thumbnail image where there's a lot of solid colors, you might stick with PNG. or JPEG. Now JPEG, of course, will do some compression that will lower quality a little bit. This one here is similar, but it supposedly gets you a slightly better file size while retaining better quality. And PNG, well, you'll always get a larger file out of that, but once again, like I said, it excels at solid colors and stuff like that. But I've been using WebP at the moment, especially for the really high-res images. So now we click upscale, let it process. Now it should be noted, if you do double upscale, the checkbox here, and it takes longer, it'll actually create a 4 times upscale image before it creates the 8 times. And so if you go into the folder early, you'll be able to open up the 4 times image while it's still generating the 8 times image. So I don't recommend opening, if you do double upscale, don't open the output image until it's done fully processing. Otherwise, that will probably disrupt the process in some way, preventing it from saving or crashing something. But, you know, otherwise, you know, right now we're just waiting for it to do its thing. If you go to Task Manager, you'll see your GPU and your CPU doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And so, for example, the 3D accelerator portion of the GPU is, you know, going to spike up a bit. It also, if I kept this open earlier, you would see that this program is using up a whole gig of video memory basically to do what it does, which is kind of interesting to me. You know, all that jazz. They might have already done everything. Oh, here we are. There's my CPU chugging along right there. So just give you an idea of like what it does. I think at one phase of the process, it's using more GPU on the 3D accelerator, and at a different phase, it's using more CPU. But definitely, you know, you can see that for the time it takes to do it, it is making use, it is utilizing your system's resources. Oh, there we go. So we can see that bump in the memory, the video RAM right there. And then you can see the drop in the GPU. This one wasn't that bad on GPU usage. My bigger concern is what the hell is using my CPU right now? That's a red flag, bro. Gonna have to investigate that in a moment. I'm gonna close some applications. Might as well do a little sharing of computer knowledge. Okay, ImageGlass is one of the image viewers I was using. I originally downloaded it because I wanted to show people images from this, you know, novel, from this sci-fi series. And I wanted something that would easily let me switch between different images, whereas the Windows Photo Viewer, by default, when you zoom in on an image, it switches between images. And I wanted something that would let me zoom in like without having to remember that. Because otherwise in Windows, you have to hold down Control before you can zoom in with the mouse wheel. So this one here, it's like I can zoom in normally. I can press my arrow keys or click on the next panel. But ImageGlass, I mean, it's got some good features in it. It has the ability to open up formats that other programs may not be able to open. But it also seems to like right now we're using up like a lot of RAM. Now, in fairness, this instance of ImageGlass is probably one of the culprits because it's opening up a large image. So what we can do is we can kill that image and see what happens. So we still got an instance of ImageGlass using up 2 gigs of RAM and 30% CPU usage. That's the Windows Photo Viewer, so that shouldn't be consequential. We still got 2.5, 2.6 gigs being used and, you know, 20, 30% CPU. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Yeah, and maybe it's because it's trying to preload it. I think what it's doing is it's loading these thumbnail images here, and it's using up a ton of CPU because to create a little thumbnail image, it has to look at the whole image first. So essentially, it's got to open up each high-resolution image one at a time. And so while I'm trying to open the image, it's also generating thumbnails, and it's doing it in like multiple instances of the same application. So I would hope that it caches that, it creates a file somewhere where like it caches that data so that it doesn't have to do it every time I open it. Otherwise, my relationship with ImageGlass will end very quickly. But yeah, so, you know, I closed one. No, it's still using up. Yeah, oh good. Okay, I closed one instance of image glass and it freed up the memory, so that's good. But I would definitely want to at some point see if this has some settings or something that dictate how it handles that type of thing. There we go. I'm gonna hit use embedded thumbnail. So any image that has an embedded thumbnail, that should help it speed up a little bit quicker. But other than that, I mean, doesn't look like I could do much to enhance the performance of this application right now. And I don't want it starting up with the OS because it's not the loading time of the app that's killing me. It's what it does when I'm actually looking at a folder. So anyway, we're going to just close that. There we go. We freed up the RAM. Freed up the RAM. And like, you don't necessarily have to use image glass, but I think what happens is if I don't think the Windows Photo Viewer can open up these WebP images. Let's see. Let's double check real quick. We're going to open up a regular PNG file, which I thought I just double clicked. We'll do that again. I just opened it twice maybe. And we're going to take this WebP image and see, it didn't open. So how do you open up a WebP image when you can't open one? Well, I think it opens up in Internet Explorer or something like that, unless you open it in Photoshop. Assuming you have a new enough version of Photoshop. But yeah, so that is upscale in a nutshell. That is upscale in a nutshell. It'll use up a lot more CPU and GPU resources when you're using the double upscale. Double upscale is actually making the image 8 times larger. But if you have a very large input image, or if the very, somewhat large input image results in a very large output image, it won't actually work. It even says that this might not always work properly with all images. For example, images with really large resolutions. And so my solution was to take that image, which had multiple book covers on one page, and break them up in Photoshop. And that was simple, for me. But in other cases, you could still do that with a photograph, perhaps. There's different ways you can handle it. If I had to break up a photograph into different quadrants before applying the 8 times upscaler to it, I would, always use, a format like WebP or PNG despite the large file size. I mean, that's basically the gist of it. The rest of the advanced settings are more cosmetic, like the color scheme of the application. If you have more than one GPU in your computer, you can actually tell it which GPU to utilize. Right now I have one GPU, but I am thinking about getting a NVIDIA Quadro at some point, because I want to have something for my secondary monitors and have one GPU that's dedicated to my main monitor for gaming. And I also want to use the second GPU for video encoding. And so, of course, I like to open up Task Manager, more detailed view. You can do Control-Shift-Escape. You can right-click on the system on the clock or the taskbar. When you right-click on the taskbar, which you can't see right now because I'm blocking it. If you right-click on the clock in the taskbar, you'll be able to open up Task Manager directly, or Control-Shift-Escape. What I don't like doing is Control-Alt-Delete, because it requires additional mouse clicks. It's just easier to right-click on the time and click Task Manager, or do Control-Shift-Escape. And then, reason I would say is because then you can go to the Performance tab, and you can make sure, if you're worried that this program, if upscale appears to be freezing up, you can monitor it as it's running. Now, normally Task Manager will look like this. If you right-click on the CPU graph, you can show all of your cores or all of your logical processes, which in this case, I have an 8-core processor, but each core shows up as 2 cores because of the hyperthreading feature that Intel, offers on these CPUs. And so that's why we see 16 histograms. But mainly I'd be looking at CPU and GPU to see if this program is doing a lot. Of course, you would also look here to look for upscale in this list, and you can sort it in alphabetical order just so it doesn't bounce around, because if you sort an application by memory usage, it'll usually stay in one place. But when you sort everything by CPU usage, it's constantly updating the CPU usage, and you're gonna have things moving all over the place, which could be an exercise in frustration. Also, I sometimes like to change the update speed to low, because if you put it on high, for example, it's gonna give you more granular metrics. But it's like the more this updates, it has to use up resources just to monitor resources. I remember a story. My friend worked for a tech support company, and customer was like, "Oh, we want the graph. We want the task updated, the logs to update every millisecond in real time." And they were wondering why their systems were always bogged down. It's because, well, you're constantly polling for resource usage, and this is how that works. So you need to create some kind of interval, some reasonable interval. If I put it on low, it updates every 5 seconds. But if you tap F5, you can always update it on demand. And so if you literally want to do real-time updates, you can hold down F5 like this, and you'll get a real-time graph. But what tends to happen then is Task Manager starts to spike, which would be a bigger issue on older single-core CPUs. See, Task Manager is constantly jumping to the top of the list here and there because I'm like holding down F5 right now. But it can be nice because then I can keep it on slow, especially on an older computer. I'll keep it on slow, and then periodically I'll tap on F5 just to see like what is it currently doing, But yeah, that basically covers that. Bottom line, yeah, it's upscale in a nutshell. That's how I monitor to make sure upscale is doing what I expect it to do. And with that, I don't think I have any other hard drives to plug in right now. And I can't really manipulate the Xbox hard drive any further until I get an opportunity to reboot my machine. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And while I'm away, I'm going to go look for that other adapter. I mean, this one's got all kinds of problems. I mean, it's invisible, for example. I mean, half the time I can't even find it because it's disappearing. I put it next to my desk, and I'm like, where is it? I can't find it. I have to go and feel around for it, But jokes aside, yeah, this particular adapter may not be compatible with the Xbox or all of them, so I need to find the other adapter really badly. That's what I'm going to do while rebooting, and I may be back soon. I may be back later, probably later, because I want to eat a sandwich. And yeah, Mr. Matt Cave, I'm going to really quickly grab a link to your channel, and you're always welcome to do that on my channel. I don't have any issue with friends of the channel self-promoting. And I got to look into something. I noticed that guys like Snowdub, they have they make use of this feature where they can. That's weird. I can't find the share button. They make use of this feature where here it is. Where they can forward people to a different channel at the end of their live streams. And I tried using that on another friend recently, but the problem I had with that, did that work? I never pasted a link in the OBS chat directly. Okay, that did work. But I think to use it, you have to enable it on both ends. I think it has to be permitted. There's a setting in everyone's channel where it says allow others to forward people to my channel or some shit like that. And then you do the opposite on your end. You basically enable it on your own channel, and you can either say allow all of my YouTube friends, allow people who are subscribed to me, or allow something like that. There's different modes. I can't remember what it was. Or allow people who are on this list, where you just put the name of the YouTube user in a text box. So at some point I do have to explore that further and find out, see if I can get people on the same page as me, so that if other people want to be auto forwarded or vice versa, when one live stream ends, if another one is already running, it would just shuffle over to that automatically. And I think that's a cool thing to do, especially as long as people are in agreement. Some people might not like what people are doing. There are days where I go and I cover some sketchy stuff, to the point that I think about okay, I don't want to talk about this unless I do on an alternate platform, because it's, just something that anybody associated, I don't want anybody associated with me, getting, a bad rap on YouTube, stuff like that. But that's a whole other story there. Yeah, I do recommend looking into that. And if I figure it out, I'll share it in a video, just how I'm using it. But from what I understand, I couldn't use it last time because I could only control one end of the transaction, and the other end, that person wasn't really set up. So with that, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.